With the introduction of the new generation of Formula 1 cars a few years ago, the F1 games seem to get a bit harder. The new cars are heavier than before and have less low-speed grip, which leads to more understeer and oversteer. EA Sports has tweaked the F1 24 handling physics a fair bit this year, which makes the game feel a bit different, a bit more pointy, and possibly a little bit trickier to drive at some points. Mastering this new style of driving takes a bit of time. With a few tips and techniques, you can get a head start to being faster. In this video, I've compiled my top tips on how to become faster in F1 24. With these tips, a bit of practice and progression, you'll soon be putting in faster lap times on the time trial leaderboard and fighting for wins against more challenging AI. Now, my first tip is a pretty easy one on paper. If you've ever watched a Formula 1 race, you'll quickly notice that all drivers seem to follow each other in a big long train. This is because there is typically one line throughout any lap which is the fastest route. This is known as the racing line, and it's very important to learn this at every single track. Utilising the racing line means using the entire width of the track, which can help shorten corners and allow you to carry more speed. Learning the optimal racing line for all 24 tracks on the F1 24 calendar may seem a bit daunting. However, there is a fantastic driving assist in F1 24 that helps speed this process up. I would highly recommend enabling the dynamic racing line from the assist menu. This will highlight on track where to position your car, where to brake, and when to start accelerating. Using this assist will give you a considerable head start in learning the ideal racing line at every single track. Over time, once you feel confident in where to position your car at a specific track, start disabling the racing line and instead use key markers and landmarks around the circuit as references on when to brake. Following on from disabling the dynamic racing line, another way to become faster is to disable some of the other assists. The driving assists in F1 24 are fantastic, and they allow players and sim racers of all skill levels to jump in and enjoy racing these incredibly powerful cars. However, while the assists are fantastic, they can certainly slow you down, which is kind of vital when you're looking for those small lap time gains. It's worth saying that if you struggle with a certain element, such as applying traction without spinning your wheels, enabling traction control will generally make you faster, as the car will be easier to drive. But if you are comfortable with managing wheel spin, and you're searching for those extra tenths of a second, disabling an assist like traction control will give you the potential of being faster. Assists like traction control and ABS are safety nets that step in and reduce your inputs when they detect you're about to lose control or spin your wheels, lock your brakes. The process of these assists stepping in will limit your ultimate performance. As you progress, feel more comfortable with the cars and you improve your consistency, try disabling these assists one by one. You may be slower initially after disabling a driver aid, but with a bit of practice you'll quickly adapt and you'll have the potential of being faster. And now we'll look at a few driving techniques that can help you improve your lap times. And the first area to improve is how you brake. This is one of the key areas where drivers can gain lap time. Braking a split second later or carrying a bit more speed into a corner will increase your minimum speed, which will lead to faster laps. Now, before I look at the tips on how to improve your braking, it's very important to understand some key mistakes that can easily be made. First of those is braking too early, which will elongate your braking zone. This means you'll be traveling at a slower speed than you should be. Next up, you've got not braking hard enough. If you aren't using the brakes to their full power, you're sacrificing some performance, and you should always be braking as hard as you can without locking your wheels. Next up, slowing down too much. This can be caused by braking too much or slowing down too much for the corner, and it's an incredibly easy mistake. It will result in slower corner speeds, which will lose you lap time. Finally, not trail braking. This is a term given to modulating your brake pressure and your steering input together. By implementing trail braking, you can actually combat all of the mistakes that I just mentioned. Now, the first rule of efficient braking in F1 24 is to always brake in as straight of a line as possible. If you brake while turning the steering wheel, you are much more likely to lock a wheel, and you won't be using all of your tyres' grip to focus on slowing your car down. This is because your tyres only have so much grip to give. When you're travelling straight, all of the grip can be used to slow your car. While turning to a corner, you'll want to be using as much of the grip as possible to carry speed through that turn. If you start turning while braking, you're taking away some of the potential grip away from slowing your car and focusing it on rotating your car. So always braking in a straight line is the best way to kind of maximise your braking efficiency. The next tip is a very easy one to fall victim to, and that is not braking too late. You may think that the best way to improve your braking is to just brake later into a corner. And this is true to some degree. However, overdoing this and braking too late will almost always slow you down. Braking later means you'll have to slow your car down further to make the apex of the corner, and this will impact your corner exit speed as you'll be travelling slower at the apex, and it will just make you slower overall. In motorsport and sim racing, you'll often hear the phrase slow in, fast out, and this is usually the best option. My third braking tip is to actually turn off the ABS. As I mentioned earlier, the ABS assist is great for preventing lockups under braking. Avoiding locking a wheel requires you to manage your brake input as you progress through the braking zone. This can be a little bit tricky, especially if you're racing F124 with a controller. Now, while ABS is great, it can cost you some lap time. When you're learning to push the limits of your car and extract all performance, disabling ABS can give you an ever so slight performance gain. You can play with your brake bias, moving it further rearwards if you do find yourself still locking a front wheel too often. Now, I mentioned it before, but my fourth braking tip is to learn to trail brake. This is an advanced braking technique that involves modulating your brake pressure in tandem with your steering input. The theory is that if you merge your braking and steering into a corner, you'll be able to carry the highest amount of speed into that turn. And when done correctly, trail braking can also help rotate your car into a corner a little bit better. So how do you trail brake, you ask? Well, first off, you approach the corner like normal and start braking at 100% pressure in a straight line. Before your tyres would start to lock up, start to gradually release the brake pedal to reduce your pressure. At this moment, as you start reducing your brake input, start turning in towards the corner, only a little bit. The more you reduce your brake pressure, the more steering input you can apply. At the apex of the corner, you should have no more braking input applied and should be turning at the maximum input required. And then on the exit, start to open up the steering and exit the corner like normal. Trail braking isn't overly easy to master, but most of you are probably doing it to some degree already, and it can address the most common mistakes made when braking in F124. When you implement this correctly, you'll be able to brake later into a corner and carry more speed through each turn. Now, stepping away from braking a little bit, when it comes to consistency throughout a race, your car relies heavily on stability. The more stable and balanced your car is, the harder you can push it and the more consistent you'll be, and this is one of the keys to a successful race. An easy mistake to make, which will really upset your car's balance, is just being too aggressive with your steering inputs. Throwing your car into a corner aggressively will cause the weight balance to shift quickly and can cause your car to become loose or unstable. This is a really common mistake that can lead to oversteer moments and even spins. An aggressive driving style can also cause your tyres to work harder and can cause excess tyre wear. Try to keep all of your steering inputs smooth and avoid corrections mid-corner. The best route is to turn into a corner once and avoid those jerky steering inputs. Now, I want to talk about something fun, and that is overtaking. While improving your driving style will lead to faster lap times and better quality positions, during a race, you'll still almost always be required to overtake some cars. Overtaking requires you to beat another driver in a one-on-one duel, and this can take a bit of finesse as well as the ability to outwit your opponent. The last thing you want is to be predictable, as the driver in front may then be able to learn your technique and they can counteract it. Try to master a few different overtaking techniques to become unpredictable and easily get past the car ahead. Now, the first decision you really have to make if you're about to make an overtake is, do you opt for the inside or the outside of a corner? Positioning your car on the inside of a turn can prevent the other driver from taking the best line through a corner. It's often the easiest approach, as you can dictate the position of the other car based on where you position yours. It's common for the car ahead to try and block the inside of a corner for this exact reason, and this in some cases can leave the outside of the turn vulnerable. Overtaking on the outside of a corner can be more challenging, as you may run out of room on the track. However, it's excellent for faster corners, and using the outside of the turn you may be able to carry more speed through the corner, giving you a better exit than your opponent. If you are forced to the outside of a corner, you may be in a scenario where you simply can't drive around the other car. They may block the track or push you out wide, and instead in these scenarios you can try a move called the up and under. This move involves you initially positioning your car on the outside line, braking slightly harder than the other driver, and just after the corner apex, as they start to kind of push you out wide, you can switch to the inside of the other car and get a better exit. When executed just right, you should be able to out-drag the other cars. You both accelerate from the corner. Now, another good overtaking option to remain unpredictable is the dummy move. This can be the hardest to pull off, but when you do, you can leave the car ahead confused and in your dust. The dummy move involves moving over to either the inside or the outside as you approach a corner, then just before the braking zone, quickly switch sides and brake later than the other car. This can leave your opponent confused and really vulnerable to being overtaken. When you do switch sides, be sure not to make contact with the car in front. If not done correctly or not timed overly well, this move can result in a big crash, so use it sparingly. A good tip is to always try and plan ahead. If you are sitting behind a car for a little while, you can look forward and plan on which corner you have the best chance of overtaking. Maybe save your ERS for a lap or two, then deploy it really aggressively on the approach to that corner. This will allow you to close in just before the corner and also have a good power advantage on the way out. F1 24 gives us much more control over our ERS to this year's game, so using that to your advantage can really help make a successful overtake. And finally, don't forget to use your DRS. Whenever you're in a DRS zone and within 1 second of the car ahead, you can activate your DRS, and this will increase your top speed, giving you a big advantage. Now, if you're kind of unsure on when to use DRS, when to activate it, you can simply enable the DRS assist, which will activate it for you. When you're searching for performance and stability in your car, tweaking your car setup is always a good option. Adjusting your setup can make you faster across a single lap, or kinder on its tyres, or easier to drive, or even all three of those. F1 24 gives us plenty of car setup options to change, from the aero to your suspension and transmission, and this can be a little bit overwhelming at times. I'm going to release a full video on how to create the perfect car setup in F1 24, but for now, go ahead and check out some of our F1 24 setup videos, which we have already, as these all feature optimized race setups. Now, a big part of racing F1 24 is choosing your camera angle. Racing using the cockpit cam can be incredibly tough, as your visibility is limited, and using the chase cam as an example can make it hard to feel how your car's behaving. Now, I recommend trying either the TV pod camera for both good visibility and good feedback, or if you're striving for realism, maybe try the TV pod offset camera. This will make your F1 game look just like a real-world Formula 1 TV broadcast. Now, my final tip is to look at analysing your lap times and your telemetry. During each session in F1 24, you have the opportunity to compare your lap times and sector times with previous laps you've done or with other cars on track, and doing this does show you which laps you are faster, but not much else. Utilising an analysis tool such as Track Titan to analyse your telemetry and compare it against others is one of the best ways to learn where you're losing time. Track Titan allows you to compare every part of your lap with other drivers, including top esports drivers. You can compare your speed, racing line, as well as your throttle and brake inputs. And doing this can give you a really good understanding of how much speed you can carry through different segments of a lap, and then you can put that data to good use and implement it in F1 24. You can sign up to Track Titan using our unique discount code, which I'll put on screen now and I'll leave in the description as well, and this will give you a big discount on your first few months of membership. This code will also give you an extended free trial period to go and test Track Titan completely free and get more laps than you would if you just signed up normally. Now, finding lap time and becoming faster in F1 24 is a game of patience and practice. However, implementing some of the tips mentioned in this video can give you a really good head start. As you put time into F1 24, don't worry if you're slower after disabling some assists or trying some new tips. The more time you spend on track, the more practice you get, the faster and more consistent you'll become. Let me know in the comments below any tips that I've not mentioned that you guys rely on, anything that you'd like to share. And also, if you enjoy this video or find anything useful, hit that like button and consider subscribing to be notified when we drop more F1 24 videos. But for now guys, enjoy the game and I will see you on track.